David Caraway was a millionaire with a weakness for beautiful women. Lana Vex was an Instagram model with a history no one could trace. Their whirlwind romance led to a lavish wedding, but within 6 months, David was dead, and Lana had vanished. This wasn't just a case of love gone wrong. It was a carefully orchestrated scheme, decades in the making, with a trail of victims stretching across continents. What began as an online flirtation would unravel into one of the most shocking true crime cases the internet has ever seen. In the heart of Arizona's luxury desert oasis, Scottsdale, lived David Caraway, a man whose success had bought him nearly everything. He was 52, fit, impeccably dressed, and wealthy enough to never check a price tag. His sprawling Mediterranean-style mansion sat behind private gates, tucked among cacti and red rock. The driveway held a silver Bentley and a matte black Porsche, each a statement of his taste for status and elegance. Inside, rare art adorned the walls, and every detail of the home screamed curated perfection. But for all his material achievements, David was still searching for something more: companionship, youth, excitement. He wanted to feel alive. David had made his fortune through high-stakes real estate ventures, buying and flipping luxury properties in prime locations across the Southwest. He was known in business circles as a risk-taker with a golden touch. His name opened doors. But behind closed ones, his life was less certain. He had been divorced twice. His first wife left after 5 years, citing his obsession with work. His second marriage, to a much younger woman, ended in a quiet and expensive settlement after she moved to Los Angeles to find herself. Despite the bruises, David remained hopeful, even naive, about love. It was during one of his late-night scrolls through Instagram that he first saw Lana Vex. Her profile was a carefully crafted mosaic of elegance, beauty, and mystery. Sunsets in Santorini, candlelit dinners in Dubai, slow-motion videos of her twirling on private beaches, each image laced with luxury. Her captions were vague and poetic, always hinting at something deeper than the photo itself. Some mirrors don't reflect who we are, but what we crave. David was captivated. She looked like someone who had stepped out of a dream and into a designer boutique. Lana was 28, or at least that's what her bio claimed. She had over 600,000 followers, and her engagement was through the roof. Comments filled with admiration, envy, and emojis. There were no obvious signs of sponsorship deals or collaborations. She seemed wealthy in her own right, or perhaps just extremely good at looking like it. David followed her, liked a few of her posts, and within days, she followed him back. That one digital gesture set everything in motion. Their first interaction was casual. She replied to one of his comments with a heart emoji. Then came the private messages. At first, they chatted about travel, wine, and music. Then they moved to longer conversations about ambition, relationships, and trust. Lana said she was tired of the Instagram world and wanted something real. She told David she admired his grounded life and business success. He, in turn, told her she reminded him of the best parts of his youth. Within a few weeks, they met in person. David flew her to Scottsdale, first class. She arrived in a designer coat and heels, her smile warm but calculated. To outsiders, it looked like a whirlwind romance. Within a month, they were appearing in each other's social media feeds, photos from exclusive restaurants, boat rides on Lake Powell, and quiet nights by the fire in David's courtyard. His friends were surprised at how fast things were moving, but David brushed off concerns. "I know what I'm doing," he told them. "This one's different." Lana was charming and attentive, and her presence made David feel younger, more relevant. 6 months after their first message, they married in a private ceremony on the beaches of Tulum. Only a few close friends were invited. The photos from the wedding were ethereal. Lana in a backless white dress, David in linen, both barefoot in the sand. The Instagram post announcing the marriage read simply, "Found what I wasn't looking for." Thousands of likes poured in, but beneath the surface of filtered bliss, cracks were beginning to form, ones that David couldn't yet see. He had found his third bride, but he had also opened the door to something far more dangerous than he realized. The first few weeks of marriage were everything David Caraway had imagined. Lana fit seamlessly into his carefully curated world. She redecorated parts of the house, adding touches of modern minimalism to contrast David's traditional style. The kitchen counters were suddenly filled with imported teas and skincare products. A soft floral scent always lingered in the air, and a rotating cast of young influencers, photographers, and stylists began appearing in the background of David's once quiet home. He didn't mind. In fact, he felt invigorated. He believed Lana was breathing new life into his routines. But while David was caught up in the honeymoon phase, others around him began to notice something different. His longtime housekeeper, Rosa, who had worked for him for over a decade, mentioned that Lana was often up in the middle of the night, speaking in hushed tones on her phone by the pool. When Rosa tried to engage her in conversation, Lana was polite but distant, her eyes often flicking toward her phone, always buzzing. The driver noticed too. Lana frequently requested unannounced rides, never telling him where she was going or who she was meeting. David's assistant, Marcus, grew even more uneasy. He handled most of David's financial affairs and had access to all accounts. Within a month of the wedding, he noticed significant transactions that raised red flags. Large amounts of money were being wired to unknown entities in Eastern Europe. When he brought it up, David shrugged it off. He said he was investing in one of Lana's passion projects, a boutique clothing line she had dreamt of launching. Lana insisted she didn't want David's money, but when he offered, she accepted. That was how she made him feel needed. Lana's Instagram changed too. Her posts became more curated, more luxurious, expensive dinners, diamond jewelry, rooftop parties, each one tagged with obscure brands and exclusive locations. Comments from her followers speculated that she had finally married a billionaire. She never mentioned David by name, never showed his face, but hints of their life together were visible if you knew where to look. She shared clips from inside his home, careful not to reveal too much, just enough to spark curiosity. One day, David received an anonymous email. The sender was unknown, and the subject line simply read, "You need to see this." Inside were screenshots of direct messages from Lana's Instagram account. They were private conversations between Lana and an unidentified man. In them, she called David her retirement plan and joked about making it to the payout. She spoke about enduring a few more months and playing her part. One message ended with, "Then we vanish." Like the others, David stared at the screen in silence. The messages were screen captures. There was no way to verify them or trace who had sent them. He didn't confront Lana. Instead, he deleted the email. That night, she curled up next to him, scrolling through her phone as if nothing had happened. But the seed of doubt had been planted. David was no longer able to fully enjoy their life together. He started watching her more closely. He noticed her carefully timed social media activity, and how she always kept her phone screen angled away from him. She began to travel frequently, short trips to Miami, Los Angeles, even New York, always alone. When he asked, she said it was for modeling contracts or brand partnerships. She never brought back paperwork or evidence. Late one night, David made a decision he had never imagined he would. He hired a private investigator. Not because he wanted to catch Lana doing something wrong, but because he wanted peace of mind. Deep down, he hoped the investigation would prove his fears wrong. He hoped Lana was exactly who she claimed to be. He wanted to believe that the woman who shared his bed, his home, and his future wasn't hiding something sinister behind the lens of her camera. But as the investigator began to dig, what he uncovered would make even David wish he had never looked. The private investigator David hired was a quiet, meticulous man named Ray Nolan. A former FBI cybercrime specialist, Ray had a reputation for uncovering truths others couldn't. David didn't give many details, just that he had concerns about his wife's background and recent financial activities. Ray took the job without hesitation. Within a week he had already found inconsistencies that made even his seasoned instincts uneasy. The first clue came from public records. According to the official marriage license, Lana Vex had listed her birthplace as Miami and claimed to be an American citizen. But when Ray dug deeper, he discovered that no such birth certificate existed under that name. Her social security number had only been issued 4 years earlier, and it was tied to a string of addresses in different states: Nevada, Texas, and New York. It looked like someone trying to stay mobile and untraceable. Ray then ran facial recognition software on Lana's photos. What came back was chilling. She had used different names in different countries. Alana Vasic in Serbia, Liana Vesk in France, and even a brief stint as Elena Vargo in Montenegro. In each identity, she was linked to a wealthy man, each one disappearing under strange or suspicious circumstances. Her Serbian passport had been revoked in 2018 after authorities investigated her connection to a boating accident involving her first husband. The case had gone cold, and she vanished shortly after. Ray compiled the information and presented it to David. For a moment, David refused to believe it. He had been so certain that Lana was different, that she was misunderstood, maybe even haunted by a difficult past. But the evidence was overwhelming. She wasn't just hiding something. She was living a lie. Things moved quickly after that. David started preparing in secret. He met with his attorney to change the structure of his financial accounts and updated his will. He didn't want to alert Lana, not yet. He needed time to think, to process. But time wasn't on his side. Just days later, David failed to show up at a scheduled meeting with investors in Phoenix. His phone went straight to voicemail, and no one could reach him. Marcus, his assistant, drove to the Scottsdale mansion and rang the bell. No answer. The cars were in the driveway. The lights were on. But David was nowhere to be found. Lana told police that David had left for a last-minute business trip to Mexico. She claimed he was taking time to clear his head. When asked why he hadn't brought his phone or passport, she said he needed a break from everything, including technology. She spoke calmly, even sympathetically, and seemed genuinely concerned. The officers had no reason to doubt her, yet. But Marcus knew something was wrong. He gave detectives a copy of the file Ray had assembled, and they reopened the investigation with new urgency. A search warrant was obtained, and law enforcement descended on the mansion. They brought cadaver dogs, hoping they wouldn't be needed. But they were. The dogs led authorities to a freshly landscaped section of the backyard, a decorative area Lana had ordered to be redone just 2 weeks earlier. Beneath a layer of succulents and stone tiles, they found disturbed soil. Carefully, the officers unearthed a tightly wrapped tarp. Inside it was the body of David Carraway. The autopsy revealed blunt force trauma to the head. The murder weapon? A heavy bronze sculpture missing from the study. Police believed he had been struck multiple times in a fit of rage. It was not a clean or calculated kill, it was messy, personal. Whatever had happened inside that house had been violent and sudden. Lana was nowhere to be found. Her phone had been turned off. Her social media accounts were wiped clean. She had vanished just like before. But this time the trail wasn't cold yet, and authorities were determined not to let her slip away again. Lana's disappearance sent shockwaves through the Scottsdale community. The glamorous Instagram model who once posted daily updates from luxury spas and private jets had simply vanished overnight. Police issued an immediate all-points bulletin, flagging her passport and alerting international authorities. Despite her efforts to erase her digital footprint, investigators found enough traces to build a trail. She had withdrawn $60,000 in cash from a joint account just 2 days before David Yeh's body was discovered. That transaction was her last recorded move, until a hit came from a luxury spa resort in Sedona. Acting on a tip from a hotel employee who recognized her from the news, detectives swarmed the location. Lana was found lounging by the pool in a designer robe, sipping green juice as if nothing had happened. In her purse was a one-way ticket to Dubai, several unregistered phones, and a flash drive containing encrypted files. When officers approached her, she didn't run. She looked up, placed her drink down, and simply said, "I assume this is about David." Her arrest made headlines across the country. Media outlets dubbed her the Black Widow of Instagram, and the story became instant tabloid fodder. But behind the headlines was a deeper, more troubling pattern. As detectives combed through the evidence, they began to piece together a web of deceit that stretched across multiple countries and victims. The most damning discovery came from a hidden nanny cam David had secretly installed in the living room. The footage, stored on a cloud server, had gone unnoticed until police reviewed all his digital assets. On one particular night, just days before he vanished, the camera recorded Lana entering the room after midnight. She appeared agitated, pacing back and forth while talking to someone on speakerphone. Although the audio was low, fragments of her conversation were clear. He found out, "No, I'm not waiting, and we're doing it now." Later in the footage, David entered the frame. A confrontation took place. Silent at first, then escalating. Lana picked up the heavy bronze sculpture from the shelf and struck him. The moment of impact was partially obscured, but the sound was unmistakable. What followed was chaos. David fell. She struck again. Then there was only stillness. Lana stood over him, breathing heavily, before leaving the room. Investigators now had not just a body and motive, but the crime on tape. Prosecutors moved swiftly, charging Lana with first-degree murder, identity fraud, and financial conspiracy. Her bail was denied. But the deeper the case went, the more disturbing it became. The unidentified man on the other end of her call was traced through encrypted messages and burner numbers. His name was Jovan Vesic, her older brother, a career con artist wanted by Interpol. Together, they had orchestrated a pattern of relationships with wealthy, vulnerable men. Jovan would often pose as a business consultant or advisor, helping Lana target and isolate her victims. In some cases, he was even believed to have assisted in staging disappearances or creating false records. Authorities believe that at least 2 of Lana's previous partners met the same fate as David. One was declared dead after a boating accident in Montenegro, though no body was ever recovered. The other vanished in Bangkok, with his estate quietly transferred to a woman using an alias matching Lana's known identities. With each victim, the pattern was the same: rapid romantic escalation, joint assets, sudden disappearance, and financial windfall. In interviews with detectives, Lana offered no apology. She insisted David had become unpredictable and possessive, claiming she acted in self-defense. But the evidence told a different story, one of premeditation, manipulation, and greed. The calm demeanor she maintained during questioning was unsettling, as though she viewed the entire situation as a minor inconvenience. Back in Scottsdale, the Caraway mansion was sealed off, its opulence now overshadowed by the brutal truth of what occurred inside. Neighbors who once admired David's seemingly enviable life now looked at the property with a quiet horror. The once vibrant home had become a crime scene, and the man who filled it with ambition and charm had been reduced to a headline, a victim of a carefully executed lie. The trial of Lana Vex, or Alana Vesic as the world now knew her, began just 6 months after her arrest. It was one of the most closely watched legal proceedings in Arizona's recent history. The courtroom was packed with reporters, camera crews waited outside every day, and social media lit up with live commentary from legal analysts and amateur sleuths alike. Everyone wanted to understand how a glamorous influencer, with a life that millions envied online, could be the cold architect of such a calculated murder. The prosecution laid out a devastating case. They began with Lana's past, multiple aliases, multiple marriages, and a trail of suspicious disappearances tied to wealthy men. Though she was never officially charged in those cases, the similarities were impossible to ignore. The prosecutors then walked the jury through her relationship with David Caraway, presenting bank records, forged signatures, and hidden communications with her brother, Jovan Vesic. The emails, texts, and phone data told a story of manipulation and greed. And finally, the jury was shown the nanny cam footage, the brutal and undeniable evidence of David's final moments. The defense attempted to cast doubt on the chain of evidence, arguing that Lana had been emotionally abused, financially controlled, and pushed to the edge. They claimed she feared David, suggesting that her actions were desperate acts of self-preservation. But her calm demeanor, her getaway plan, and the damning footage all painted a far darker portrait. One of a woman who didn't just want to escape, but to inherit, vanish, and repeat. It took the jury only 3 hours to reach a unanimous verdict. Guilty on all counts. Lana showed no emotion as the sentence was read, life in prison without the possibility of parole. For someone who had once lived for the camera, there was no tearful breakdown, no dramatic last statement. She stood motionless, as though the trial was just another performance in a life built on illusion. In the weeks following the verdict, more details emerged about the extent of Lana and Jovan's schemes. The flash drive recovered in her purse held encrypted files tied to offshore accounts, forged identity documents, and blueprints for a new alias she was planning to adopt once she reached Dubai. It was clear she had done this before, and would have done it again. Interpol issued a renewed international warrant for Jovan Vesic, but he remained at large. Some believed he had fled to Eastern Europe. Others thought he might already be living under a new name in South America. Despite his absence, the case helped uncover a wider web of fraud and romance scams linked to the siblings, helping authorities shut down multiple money laundering operations across borders. Back in Arizona, the Caraway family faced the heartbreaking task of restoring David's legacy. His sister, Michelle, took charge of his estate and launched the Caraway Foundation for Digital Awareness, aimed at educating people about online fraud, romance scams, and the hidden dangers of curated personas. The Foundation's mission was clear: to teach others the lesson David learned too late, that not everyone online is who they claim to be. David's mansion was eventually sold, its history too dark for most buyers to stomach. The new owners gutted the home and started from scratch, hoping to bury its past under fresh paint and new memories. But neighbors say the house still feels different. Quiet, heavy, changed. As for Lana, her Instagram page was permanently deleted, her face now known not for beauty, but for betrayal. Her story became a cautionary tale that echoed far beyond Arizona. In the end, her carefully constructed image shattered under the weight of her own deception. She had chased a life of luxury at any cost, but the cost, this time, was life itself. David's final mistake wasn't falling in love. It was believing that love, especially in the age of filters and followers, couldn't be fatal.